Hey everyone, welcome back to another week of the Unnamed Cybertalk. Got a little some interesting stuff to talk about this week. I don't know, what did it affect, Chris? 50 million people?
I don't even know. If it was 15,000 customers.
It was 15,000 customers. Anyway, Power School application that's used by a lot of schools in the K through 12 space to go in and manage their school and their students' data and correspond between teachers, parents, and even manage school administration information. Had a data breach. It wasn't ransom. Well, it wasn't. Didn't turn into a big. Didn't turn into a big encryption event, but the data was exfiltrated, and I figured we could unpack some of that today, and see what we got. Well, I don't think my kids have been in Power School. I don't know about anyone else's.
Not
I don't have kids. I don't have kids, so I'm good. I'm good.
There you go.
That's why you're so peaceful.
And your wife's not a teacher because
No.
I did talk to.
Yeah, well, with my ex-wife being a teacher, her last district did use Power School, and I know they tracked health insurance and everything in there. So I'm sure yours truly is in that breach. So what'd they get? What I got to worry about?
Let's cover the timeline. Let's kind of go over this timeline, right? Because I feel like it's kind of important. So Christmas break, right? Schools are out. I'm sure that Power School was down on their staff. So December 19th, hackers got initial access. And they just compromised credentials to Power School's support platform called PowerSource. Bob, you watched the webinar. Did they mention anything about MFA or anything like that on that platform?
I didn't hear any mention about MFA, but it turned out the credentials that they used were actually available prior to December 19th on the dark web. It was one of the support people's reps. They did give the name on the call. I don't have the name, but it was definitely out there. And sounds like the bad guys put that information in and ran with it.
So first of all, nobody knows. Well, I don't think anybody. Well, we don't know how that ended. How those credentials ended on the dark web. Right.
No, I'd really like to know.
Chances are real good it was a fish. It was,
or recycle password.
How do you phish a support? Unless they were doing like SSL.
No, it wasn't. Like it wasn't. It was an individual. It wasn't like a generic support account. It was
we don't know how their authentication works internally, right? So it could be just their email address. Basically, their Power School email address could have been login.
And that support system that was used to go access other clients apparently was sitting on the internet. He's readily accessible for anyone to log in.
Yeah, which they've now said is behind a VPN. Like you have to have a VPN to access it, right? But before it was on the internet. And it was accessed by somebody from the Ukraine. Well, that IP address came from the Ukraine. So some people will say, well, they could just block like Ukraine as an IP, at the firewall so they couldn't get access to it, but they probably would just switch to like someplace in the United States and got around that.
Sure.
What's interesting to me is allegedly between December 19th and December 21st, they were performing reconnaissance inside and they collected something like 15 terabytes of logs and nobody noticed.
That's a lot of data.
That's a lot of data. I have friends who may or may not have NASs that would be impressed by 15 terabytes. Okay, I'll leave it at that.
So it was more than logs from the call I was on. It actually said that the guys were going in and pulling the student table and the faculty or teachers table in there. So
yeah, that was the next day. Just the reconnaissance between December 19th and 21st. They just pulled 15 terabytes of logs. They probably then formulated how they're going to automate it because it looks like, I guess, allegedly on December 22nd, they used automated scripts to exfiltrate the data, and that's where they got into like the students and teachers database table from PowerSource. So they figured out basically in 3 days, they did all the reconnaissance. They then figured out how to automate it and write scripts to use that support tool to connect into not only hosted Power Schools, but self-hosted Power Schools on site.
So servers that were behind the company's firewall because they wanted to keep their data close.
But they left the support option on, so the support company had a backdoor into every single PowerSchool instance, is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Cool. That sounds like a great idea, especially considering that it looks like MFA wasn't employed on that support platform.
I don't know that for a fact, but like I said, I didn't hear any reference to it.
If it was, then they either stole a token or some session, whatever. They stole some authentication token to get in. So even if they had it, they got in either way. Kind of interesting that one account could have so much power from a support representative.
It's not normal.
And not get noticed. But then, so December 19th, hacked. 2 days of recon. Start the attack on the 22nd of exfiltrating data, and then PowerSchool found out on December 28th? I
think it was the 28th.
And that could be because they got hit with a ransom demand. Allegedly, it sounds like that might be the way it was. Like they didn't know, and then on December 28th, they got this nice little message saying, "Hey, you know what? We stole all this data. How much you going to pay us to destroy it?" And then the timeline I found talks from December 28th to January 7th that they enlisted the services of an incident response company. And they quote, let's read the quote here from the CISO. They say that the adversary's business model relies on trustworthiness, so they have a high level of confidence that the exfiltrated data was truly deleted and won't resurface because they witnessed them deleting a version via a video. Okay.
Gosh.
Sure. Let's go with that. Let's roll with that. Yeah. And it also looks like they hired CrowdStrike for incident response and forensics, and that report will be out on the 17th. So they notified people on January 7th. So pretty tight timeline from the time that hack started to actually notifying their impacted customers.
They notified the customers, but not the end users that were affected.
Right. So the schools, basically.
Yep.
And January 7th notice to a school that's been off for 2 weeks or is just coming back to work is like, okay, what do we do?
They got what? Names, social security numbers. They got pretty much everything. Everything
they got names, social security numbers. The student files. The student table apparently also had medical information about the students in it, guardian information. So there's plenty of information in there to put some very directed phishing campaigns together to reach out and find and touch all those people.
I found an update. Well, none of the customer communications or FAQ documents have mentioned MFA during the January 7th webinar. It was mentioned that MFA has been implemented for PowerSource. So that tells us that it didn't exist before that. But as of January 8th, and I haven't verified this, MFA is still not required for customer PowerSource accounts.
Nailed that one, didn't I?
But they did apparently disable the remote access export feature that was used to steal all this data.
Yeah. So what they said on the call was they're putting an update out that the maintenance feature has I think a 30-day a timeout on it now. So if someone needs help, they can turn the support on, and if they forget to shut it off, it's just going to time out.
30 days?
I think it was 30 days. It could be wrong.
30. If it's 30 days, that's way too long. But
almost defeats the purpose.
They did release some IOCs that you could, if you're searching through the logs on your PowerSchool, you can actually find out what was exfiltrated. So that's cool. So all these schools now need to go through there and be like, hey.
So I actually did work with somebody that went back and looked at those logs. And this is a 4,000 student. They have 4,000 students in PowerSchool, or 4,000 active students. Turns out the table for students that was exported was actually 43,000 records. Every student that they've had. So from a breach notification, we now there's a lot of data that's got to go out.
And these are kids that don't really have their life started yet, but are immediately a target for some serious identity theft moving forward.
Yes and no, Matt, because the students that aren't there anymore would have been graduated. And I know these guys have been using it for at least 15 years.
Yeah. Well, okay, so they have both.
Yes, with the combo.
The youngsters and those that have moved on.
So this reminds me when my data was leaked from a college I went to. So I'd been a student there since like 2000, and I got a letter in 2020, I think, saying that somebody had a laptop stolen out of their car and my social security number was on that laptop. Why? First of all, but like, why would you have student records that have like open social security numbers and stuff for 43,000, like all your students ever? Like, I've never understood this. Why is it so easily accessible? You know, that's a question that I think we all need to ask. Why is it so easily accessible and exportable, first of all?
I'll tell you one thing. PowerSchool has had some information out there for a while. Hypothetically, if you happen to run a search on any dark web records, there's literally hundreds of employees' logins out here with full password.
Oh,
I mean, it's
yeah. Well, I mean, how many people are in?
I mean, some is accounts.powerschool.com. Some is their Windows Azure infrastructure. I mean, this is significant.
Oh, they have 3,500 employees. So yeah, I mean, think about how easy it is to phish people. That wouldn't be shocking.
But you have to wonder, was the account that was used something that's been out there for a while and no one was checking what's out there? Because we check what's out there and change it, right?
I like how a company that was just bought for $5.6 billion doesn't have MFA on their support portal and has a backdoor into everything and didn't notice anything was going on.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I love. Look at it. Like, I understand like smaller companies not having certain things in place. This reminds me of Change Healthcare. Not have MFA on any of their stuff for like Citrix and stuff, and that's how they got in. Like, really? This is real life. We're sitting here. Well, this is 2024. This happened technically. So, but like, there's again, we go back to the legal side of this. What repercussions are there?
Not enough.
So somebody will inevitably start a lawsuit. It'll be a class action lawsuit against PowerSchool. They'll settle. They'll pay everybody $3.25 and say, "Oh, we're sorry. Here's
so
whatever for 2 years."
So if we take this back to travelers and ICS, I wonder what their cyber insurance policy, even what they said on their cyber insurance policy around MFA, if anything.
That could have been self-funded. They were owned by venture capital anyway, or private equity, and that didn't change. So,
but so one thing that I think people should be doing if they have kids in schools with PowerSchool, even if they don't have, if they weren't affected with this PowerSchool, is reach out to the credit bureaus and freeze the kids' credit accounts. I looked at this just recently, and it turns out if you have a minor, you can't lock a minor's account online. You have to actually contact the credit agencies directly. You can lock the account as their parent, and when the kid turns 15 or 16, they have the opportunity to unlock it themselves. But you always keep that. But it's time. It's
maybe we should go to hospitals and start handing out pamphlets. Here's the phone numbers to call for the credit. Now, congratulations on being a new parent. Now call and lock their credit before somebody steals it.
Because actually, kids get Social Security numbers immediately now.
Yeah, before they leave the hospital. No joke. So on the password thing, I'm going to share my screen for a second because I know I'm kind of stuck on this, but this is interesting. And I've got some theories about bad password habits that might be involved here.
Oh, God.
I just want to see the look on people's faces if I showed up to a hospital and started handing out pamphlets and they should lock their kids' credit.
I actually found I had an FTC flyer floating around specifically to do that, protecting your kids online. Protecting your kids' identity.
start investing in a Roth IRA for them, a custodial Roth IRA, and lock their credit. Congratulations.
Yes.
But I was just surprised that they could at 15 they could get it unlocked. So I was like, wait a minute, so they can start getting credit cards and stuff.
All right, let me add this to the stage.
No, it's got to be I think it's to be cosigned to 18.
So
that is an eye chart, man.
I wish
what was used.
We'll pretend we can see that.
Here,
just zoom in on the. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, just hypothetically.
Yep.
Basically, what we're looking at here is known accounts that end in powerschool.com that have been found out on the dark web, and this stuff is searchable. You can use systems that notify you when credentials are found out there. And not to say this is definitely what was used, but there's so many out there from staff there. You have to wonder, was one of these out there? Password wasn't changed in a while, because this particular breach that support powerschool.com, and I'm just going to assume this person has some kind of access there, was only from a 2024 breach in September, not that long ago, right? So just food for thought. Good password practices. Yeah, we need two-factor, but also we should be checking what's known to be out there. And if something's found to be out there, well, change a password, save 50 million people, students, social security numbers, etc.
I mean,
that's my rant.
They could implement secure by design coding principles and
that too.
Principles.
I mean, do your job kind of thing, right?
You know,
but this could have been prevented by the most basic security.
I think I'm to the point where I think the only way this is going to change is if somebody either goes to jail or gets fined $1 billion.
Or both.
They're worth $5 billion.
Yeah, they sold for 5.6. Yeah,
okay. $1 billion would probably hurt.
Probably, but there's just no repercussions to it. You know, we're sitting here. This is off topic a little bit. 6 days, TikTok's gonna be banned, right? 7 days, TikTok, whatever. 5 days, whatever it's gonna be. TikTok's gonna be banned.
No one liked the way you danced anyway.
What?
No one liked the way you danced anyway.
My dancing is irrelevant.
The way you dance.
So, we just don't have data privacy laws in this country. So, Meta and Google, they pay a few $1 million for lobbying. They get TikTok called a national security threat. And look, maybe there's more to it than that, but they won't release the data. And they keep saying that's national security threat, but there's other people inside the government that have said it's not. But it comes back to the same thing. Who's protecting our data? Why is it so hard to have a data privacy legislation that gets passed that protects us? Why are we so concerned with banning certain apps, but we're not concerned with the fact that Meta does this? Google does this. All these places do this. They collect this information. You know, you have what happened down in Florida with National Public, National Public NPD or whatever, National Public Database. They leaked 3.something billion records on people, and there's no repercussion to it. Oh wow, you get sued. Like I made like $1 million, like a couple $100,000 last year. What's he gonna do? What are they gonna do? Put him out of business? Oh well, but the data's still out there.
Yeah, and there's really a question of
it's just frustrating.
Are we putting our resources in the right place by banning TikTok versus giving, preventing things like what just happened some teeth? Because what's really hurting people right now, a bunch of kids dancing on an app owned by a foreign entity, zippity frickin' doodah, or the fact that we just let, what did you say it was 50,000 customers? And when I say customer, that's the whole school, right? So say there's 1,000 a school. That's just a low number.
Past and present.
It's probably millions of students. Let's be real. Yeah. It's going to be millions of students. So
are we barking up the right tree here? I think is what I was trying to bird walk on a little.
Regardless of who you are, if you conduct business inside the United States, there should be data privacy laws that mandate that and have stiff penalties. GDPR is like up to 4% of global revenue. Where is it? I've written to congressmen before and they just kind of blow it off. So what's it going to take? that's my question to everybody out there. What is it going to take for Congress to take action?
Congress probably isn't feeling the pain. Those that get their identity stolen and businesses lost are. But that is a funny point, because the argument over banning TikTok is control the data and what they use it for. It doesn't really matter if it's a foreign entity or a domestic one, because the domestic ones are doing the same darn thing. We just know it.
One of the arguments they said was that this has been legal when they had media companies that were foreign owned, that if it was adversarial, that they could ban it. Okay, social media isn't a
really interesting interpretation of that whole law, isn't it? Yeah,
well, that's. I mean, we could talk about how mainstream media now is kind of dying, and people are getting their media and their information from social media, which is kind of alarming in certain senses, because we're just on the heels of Meta pulling their fact checking and saying, hey, now it's community notes. So now we're going to be relying on community notes, which has created a lot of jokes. And I won't go into the memes that have spun up from this, but
it's been entirely worth the Zuckerberg memes. I mean, I've been entertained for days.
Yeah.
I can't bring any up as an example because none are appropriate. Look, so why do you think they did a 180? Do you think it was just follow the money, or do you think you actually had a change of heart over it? I'm curious.
It's a political move.
It's probably. Yeah.
Who knows?
Also, it saves them a lot of money, because if they don't have to pay all the fact checkers and they just let the people that use the app make community stuff, they're basically not paying them. They're harvesting their data. They're not paying them, and they get to make community notes.
And
if you look if you look at the multiple that Facebook trades at, this could increase its value by $18 billion, something like that, by just cutting out fact checkers. So
I wonder if cutting out fact checkers reduces their risk.
No, because Section 230 basically makes it free for them. They can't be sued for what their users post. They can be requested to take it down, but they can't be sued for it. You want to see the internet die?
Well, I'm saying, but if they are doing fact checking and they miss stuff, was it getting to be just too much to do? I don't know.
At the end of the day, there's biases that exist on everybody, right? Everybody has bias. It doesn't nobody's perfect. Everybody's biased. So some fact checking is going to be biased one way. Some fact checking is going to be biased the other way. How do you balance that? That's a good question. But in a world where we have no data privacy protections, people can post whatever they want. They ban an app because they say the data is important, but they don't actually make legislation to protect our data. And then you have stuff like fact checking going away and stuff like that. It's okay, if you're really concerned about the data and what people can do with it, and you take fact checks away, how easy is it going to be weaponized, those platforms, to just get their users to do something? So what's it going to take?
Yeah.
And on that somber note, thank you for joining us this week.
Yeah, exactly.
Discussion to be continued later.
All right, guys. Let's wrap this one up. Like I said, from a power school perspective, and you got kids, lock their credit, and be diligent about what emails you get from schools, because I think they know a lot. The bad guys know a lot more about you, and unless we just trust the video that Chris talked about where they really did delete the stuff after they paid the ransom, I don't think so.
Too valuable to delete. We'll sell it.
See you next week.
See you next week, guys.